Madonna Luis Ciccone. I want you to know, I looked up this last name on YouTube. I looked up different pronunciations. Every single video pronounced it differently. So I have no idea how to say this last name.
You heard it here, folks. This is the correct way. All the other ways are not good.
It is Ciccone. So it's very Italian. Ciccone, probably, is probably the closest, but I don't know. We'll just call her Madonna. Anyway, she was born in 1958 in Bay City, Michigan. Her parents were devout Catholics, and her father was the son of Italian immigrants, and her mother was from French Canada. Her father worked as an engineer for some pretty large companies, doing like mostly military work. Her parents' religious faith played a large role in her upbringing, and she called her mother a religious zealot and said there was always priests and nuns visiting their house.
Yikes.
Why is that yikes? That could be a good thing.
I don't know. It just seems very like overbearing.
The Catholic imagery that shows up in her style and her performances later probably comes a lot from that. Her mother was also named Madonna, so she often went by Little Donnie and took the name.
That's so cute.
She took the name Veronica as a confirmation name when she was confirmed in the Catholic Church.
I forget that you do that.
Yeah. In 1963, at the age of 30, Madonna's mother passed away from breast cancer.
Oh.
Seeing her mother frail and weak had a massive impact on her. She claims it's one of the reasons why she wanted to have a powerful voice. In school, she was a bit of an overachiever. She was a straight-A student, a cheerleader, and graduated a semester early. But
Madonna.
She was also known for having some unconventional behavior. She'd pull up her skirt to let the boys see her underwear, and she would hang from her knees from the monkey bars, letting her dresses and skirts fall all asunder.
Asunder.
She said about her school days, quote, "I was a lonely girl who was searching for something. I wasn't rebellious in a certain way. I cared about being good at something. I didn't shave my underarms and I didn't wear makeup like normal girls do. But I studied and I got good grades. I wanted to be somebody," end quote. She was also an accomplished dancer. Her dance teacher convinced her to pursue a career in dance, and she got a dance scholarship to Michigan University. In 1977, while still in undergrad, she was offered a 6-week scholarship to study with a dance theater in New York City. So she left school and moved to New York. She made rent by doing odd jobs like dance performances, nude art modeling, and working at a Russian tea room.
Oh my God, fun.
She said that moving to New York terrified her. She said, quote, "I came here with $35 in my pocket. It was the bravest thing I'd ever done," end quote.
I think that's why New Yorkers are so like tough, because I think that that's like a good 60% of people who go to New York are like, probably. That's their story.
And you just have to be to survive, as evidenced by this next story.
Oh no.
One night while returning home, she was held at knife point and sexually assaulted.
Oh God.
Which, of course, left a huge impact on her. She said it gave her a taste of her own weakness, no matter how strong she tried to be.
That's awful. Oh my God.
Yeah. In 1979, she started dating a musician called Dan Gilroy. Dan was the singer of a ska-inspired band called The Breakfast Club. He also lived with his brother in a synagogue in Queens.
Didn't realize you could live in synagogues, but okay.
It might have been one that wasn't actively being used as a synagogue, like an old synagogue. I don't know. I couldn't find much out about Dan. Dan and his brother waited tables during the day and then performed comedy or music at night. Dan introduced her to a French disco singer named Patrick Hernandez. She auditioned and got a job as his backup singer and dancer, so she moved to Paris for a while to work with him. But her time in Paris only lasted for 3 months before she moved back to New York and moved into the synagogue with Dan and his brother. There, she started playing the drums and learning how to write songs.
Hell yeah, hot girl drummer Madonna.
She started playing drums and singing in their band, The Breakfast Club. In 1980, Madonna's boyfriend from Michigan, Stephen Bray, moved to New York. Madonna left The Breakfast Club, rekindled her romance with Stephen, and started a band called Emmy and the Emmys.
That's not a good name.
Stephen moved to New York specifically because Madonna called him and said she wanted to start a band with him.
I would do that too for Madonna.
Emmy and the Emmys played gigs at local New York City bars for like $25 for about a year, and they ended up only releasing one demo. After that demo, Madonna decided she wanted to be a solo artist. She wanted to go more in a dance music direction, and Emmy and the Emmys were definitely like rock-based. Madonna landed a manager and then started trying to push her demo to all of the dance clubs and DJs in New York. One of those DJs, or whatever, dance club operator, I don't know what he was, Mark Kamens, was really impressed by it, and they also started dating. Kamens brought her demo to his boss, who is the founder of Island Records. But that boss said, quote, "I'm not going to sign my A&R guy's girlfriend," end quote. So Kamens introduced Madonna to Sire Records instead. They signed her to a singles deal and released her debut single called Everybody in 1982. So Kamens was the producer of this single, and he also ended up working with the Beastie Boys for a bit and is kind of seen as like a legendary DJ in the New York club scene. Unfortunately, he passed away in 2013 at the age of 57 while he was teaching in Mexico. Both that single and her second single were pretty successful in the dance scene, and Sire Records booked her to start making her first album. That album, which was just called Madonna, was released in 1983, and it was kind of a slow burn, but eventually it became pretty successful, and young girls across the country started to imitate Madonna's signature style, which included a lot of lace, fingerless gloves, and religious symbolism.
It's pretty badass.
Up to this point, Madonna was still collaborating pretty heavily with Stephen Bray, her old boyfriend from college, but she chose not to work with him on this debut album. Someone said that was because the label head didn't want to have a relationship in the band, since that notoriously didn't go well. But after this album, Madonna would go back to working with Stephen Bray for most of the 80s. Her debut album eventually peaked at number 8 in the charts and had 2 top 10 singles. It took her a while and many club performances to get there, but her first international hit was a song called Holiday. Well, that song earned her a live TV performance on American Bandstand, where she told host Dick Clark that her main ambition was to rule the world.
Go, girl, go.
She took a brief break to star in a romantic drama called Vision Quest, and then she performed on more TV shows and had her music videos played on MTV. Basically, she was just establishing herself as a brand and putting her style out there.
Very smart. It's obviously worked.
Which led to many women trying to copy her. All of that paved the way for her second album, which released in 1984, to become a massive success. It reached number 1 and hit platinum status. That second album, Like a Virgin, she collaborated with Stephen Bray pretty heavily. It was the first album by a female artist to sell over 5 million copies.
Hell yeah.
Madonna wanted to produce it herself, but the label didn't really feel comfortable with that, so she worked with Nile Rodgers, who had worked with David Bowie in the past and was the co-founder of the disco band Chic. She said, quote, "When I was making the record, I was just so thrilled and happy to be working with Nile Rodgers. I idolized Nile because of the whole Chic thing. I couldn't believe that the record company gave me the money so that I could work with him," end quote. A lot of the songs were co-written by Stephen Bray, who said, quote, "I've always kind of made the rib cage and the skeleton of the songs already. She's there for the last things like the eyebrows and the haircut," end quote. Q Magazine said the album, quote, "propelled Madonna into the stratosphere," and rightly so. The songs are smart, funny, sexy, and irresistible, end quote. So it was on that set that Madonna met and started dating actor Sean Penn.
Wait, really?
Yeah. They got married a few months after meeting in 1985 on Madonna's 27th birthday. The relationship was not always great. Sean famously got arrested for assaulting a photographer on their honeymoon, but they starred in a movie together in 1986, which earned Madonna an award for Worst Actress. Sean Penn was known to get angry and aggressive. He also had big problems with jealousy and would fly into a rage and accuse Madonna of cheating on him, which she vehemently denied. There were always allegations of physical abuse, but Madonna has always denied those too. It is worth noting that she filed an assault report against him after a New Year's Eve party, but she later withdrew the charges. Sean ended up spending...
Ma'am, why did you withdraw? Why withdraw them? Don't do that.
I mean, if it didn't actually happen, then...
My bet's that it happened. I feel like generally 19 times out of 20, 99 times out of 100, it probably happened.
But Sean did end up spending 60 days in jail for parole violations, and that seemed to be the nail in the coffin of their relationship. They divorced in 1989, but both have said that they are still in love with each other. Sean said that as recent as 2015.
Wow.
Her third album, True Blue, was inspired by and dedicated to Sean Penn. It hit number 1 in 28 different countries, had 5 different singles reach number 1 in the US or the UK, and sold 25 million copies, making it the best-selling album by a female artist up to that point, and it's still tied for 10th. Her next album came out in 1989, which coincided with her divorce from Sean Penn. She got a sponsorship deal with Pepsi and debuted the title track of the album called Like a Prayer in the commercial. It didn't go well.
Pepsi really, Pepsi will make some great, iconic music commercials.
They had a whole thing in the 90s where they were trying to be the young brand. That was how they thought they could take a market share from Coke. So they got people like Michael Jackson and
That's
Madonna
so funny.
and MTV and try to like sponsor the youth stuff so they could be like the soda for the youth. The commercial didn't go well. The video features her confessing to a priest and then making love to him, or at least implies it. So the Vatican condemned the video, and religious groups tried to get it banned, which led to Pepsi pulling the commercial and ending the sponsorship. Still, the song became her 7th #1 single. She wrote this album with Stephen Bray, Patrick Leonard, who was another longtime collaborator, and Prince.
Nice.
In their review, Rolling Stone called it, quote, as close to art as pop music gets.
Hell yeah.
Proof not only that Madonna should be taken seriously as an artist, but that hers is one of the most compelling voices of the 80s, end quote. By 1991, Madonna was a money-making machine. She had achieved 21 top 10 singles, sold 70 million albums, and generated $1.2 billion in sales. Not to mention her acting career. She starred in the film Dick Tracy, which hit #1 in the box office in 1990, and A League of Their Own, which hit #1 in 1992.
I actually don't think I knew that.
That they hit #1 or that she was in those?
That she was in those.
Yeah, I didn't remember it about A League of Their Own. I've never seen Dick Tracy. She signed a $60 million contract with Time Warner. The deal created her own production company, which was called Maverick, which would release more albums, merchandising, videos, films, and books. Time Warner gave her the highest royalty rate at that time, which equaled the one that Sony gave to Michael Jackson. Maverick, that kind of production company that Time Warner created and gave to her, would go on to become one of the most successful artist-run labels in history.
I find it actually really cool that like she was making the same royalties as Michael Jackson. Like she should, but like it's kind of surprising that like she did.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
That's cool.
So that Maverick label produced albums by Alanis Morissette and Michelle Branch. In 1992, Madonna released her next album called Erotica and simultaneously released a coffee table book called Sex. The book features black and white photos of Madonna mostly naked and posed with other people, chairs, dogs, and slices of pizza. On the first day, it sold 150,000 copies.
She's so real for that.
So 150,000 copies on the first day. 3 days later, all 1.5 million printings of the first edition were sold out, making it the most successful coffee table book of all time. The album was also a success and reached double platinum status. For these next few years, Madonna kind of pushed the boundaries more than a lot of people were comfortable with. On her tour, she dressed up as a dominatrix and had topless dancers around her. In Puerto Rico, she rubbed their flag between her legs, which the crowd was not all that happy with.
I could see that being an issue.
She appeared on David Letterman and gave him a pair of her panties and told him to smell them. All of these antics led critics and fans to start turning on her a little bit. A lot of them thought she had gone too far. She also had started dating Tupac and Dennis Rodman around this time.
What?
Who were two notoriously bad boy type guys.
She dated Tupac?
Yeah, I didn't know that either. I knew Dennis Rodman because that was like a big thing. Her next album in 1994 was called Bedtime Stories and showcased a softer side of her as an artist. She wrote most of it, and it was kind of an attempt to salvage some of her public image. It debuted at #3 and had 2 top 10 singles. In 1996, she won a Golden Globe for her performance in Evita. She also settled down a little bit into a relationship with a man named Carlos Leon, who was a personal trainer, and she had a daughter in 1996, which she called the greatest miracle of her life. She also moved out of her pink Hollywood mansion into a more modest home in the LA suburbs. That year was kind of a huge turning point in her career. She had a really successful part in a big movie again, and she had a softer sounding album. She was in a steady relationship that would eventually end the next year, and she had a daughter. She showed she was a capable artist again and turned around her public image. After her daughter's birth, Madonna became interested in Eastern mysticism, and her next album, Ray of Light, reflected that. It leaned into electronic music and had themes that were highly personal to her. It did earn her 4 Grammys, and it also won her yet another award for the artist with the most #2 single.
I didn't realize that was a award. Did they make that up for her?
Record is probably a better word than award. I don't think she got a trophy for it. But she founded the Ray of Light Foundation, which seeks to promote peace, equal opportunity, and education for everyone. She appointed her sister as the charity's trustee. In the early 2000s, she continued to star in movies and release music. She starred in a show on the West End in 2002 and wrote a children's book. And she wrote a children's book, which became the fastest-selling children's book of all time.
I also did not know that.
She donated all of the proceeds to children's charities. In 2000, she had a son with her boyfriend, director Guy Ritchie, and then she married Ritchie later that year. In 2003, she had even more controversy at the VMAs when she kissed Britney Spears and Christina Aguilera on stage. Basically, she's just kind of living the life of an icon. She still releases music, still writes books, still does a ton of business things behind the scenes, but she keeps a little bit of a lower profile now than she used to.
So cool.
Her legacy really kind of transcends music. She actually has an entire school of sociology that studies her impact on American culture.
Bro, what?
It's called Madonna Studies, and you can take college classes on it.
That's wild.
She was arguably the first viral pop star, which she managed long before the internet was a thing. A writer for the Daily Telegraph said, quote, "Madonna has changed the world's social history, has done more things as more different people than anyone else is ever likely to," end quote. Many people think she formulated the blueprint of what a pop star is, can be, and should be. Another writer pointed out that, quote, "It's worth noting that before Madonna, most music megastars were guy rockers. After her, almost all would be female singers. When the Beatles hit America, they changed the paradigm of performer from solo act to band. Madonna changed it back, with an emphasis on the female," end quote. She broke down barriers for women in the entertainment industry and revolutionized the public discourse on sex and feminism. She broke down barriers for marginalized communities by repeatedly featuring LGBTQ, Latino, and Black cultures in her works. Most of her relationships were interracial, when that wasn't nearly as commonly accepted as it is now, and she also became an icon for business women through all of her different interests in her smart managing of all of those different interests.
Hell yeah, Miss Ma'am.
Her level of control over her career was unprecedented for a woman in the industry at that time, and it paved the way for other women to have similar levels of control over their own careers. And that's Madonna.